think Kentucky is the most underrated team in the SEC going into this season. I don't think enough people are talking about Kentucky this year. And I did a poll on my channel asking who you guys thought was going to be the second best team in the East behind Georgia this year. And the majority of you guys voted Tennessee. A good majority of you guys behind Tennessee voted South Carolina. And then Kentucky was not even really receiving too many votes. And I think that a lot of y'all are really sleeping on how good the Wildcats are going to be this year. I know things were really disappointing for them last season. Remember, going into 2022, they were coming off a 10-3 season in 2021. But they lost their offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, who went to the Rams for a season. He's back. And Will Levis regressed. And Will Levis, now that he's gone, you're going to have Devin Leary replacing him. And Devin Leary is a huge upgrade over Will Levis. Not only is he a better decision maker than Will Levis, but he also is just a better overall quarterback than what Will Levis was. Prior to last season, Devin Leary had one of the best touchdown-interception ratios in all of college football, and he was probably the best quarterback in the ACC when he was playing for NC State. He's going to Kentucky, a team that has a really talented offense. A lot of people aren't talking about how good this receiving core is for Kentucky. You got Dane Key, Barry Brown, who both played as true freshmen last year and were two of the best receivers on this team. They're going into their sophomore seasons. These weren't 3-star, 2-star guys, neither. These were 4-star recruits coming out of high school. And Kentucky's offensive line was really bad last year, which is uncharacteristic for this program because normally the offensive line for Kentucky is amongst the best in college football, and it has the nickname the Big Blue Wall. So hopefully your offensive line can bounce back to what it used to be. But even if your offensive line isn't as great as what it has been historically, your offensive line is still going to be better than South Carolina's. South Carolina's offensive line has been an issue for how many years? I don't think South Carolina is going to be better than Kentucky. I think Devin Leary is going to be better than Spencer Rattler. And Spencer Rattler, yes, he did have a good end to last year, but he just wasn't consistent. You're going to get more consistency out of your quarterback play, and having consistent quarterback play in the SEC is key. If you have a quarterback that's inconsistent, especially in big games, you are going to have a hard time being able to have a lot of success in this conference. Devin Leary, with the receivers that he's going to be throwing to, having Liam Cohen return as his offensive coordinator. Remember, when Liam Cohen was last the offensive coordinator for Kentucky, Mark Stoops had the best offense of his whole entire tenure at Kentucky when Liam Cohen was there. So he comes back and he's with Devin Leary, a better quarterback than Will Levis, who's going to make less mistakes and is going to be better at reading coverages. This offense should be one of the better units in the SEC this year. And how they compare to Tennessee offensively, I don't think they're on the same level of Tennessee. I think Tennessee's offense is going to be just as good as what it was last year. But Kentucky doesn't have the same playing style of Tennessee. They're not a team that's going to beat you by spreading the ball around. They're going to be a balanced football team. They're going to be good enough to run the football against you, and they're also going to have a lot of success throwing the football against you, with them having one of the 3 best quarterbacks in this conference, and Devin Leary. Outside of Jaden Daniels, KJ Jefferson, who else are you going to put over Devin Leary? Not Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler hasn't been better than Devin Leary over the last 2 years, and you can't say he's been in a better situation because he was playing at NC State. I mean, Joe Milton has a lot of potential, but right now, Devin Leary is the better QB. Devin Leary gives Kentucky a good advantage as compared to the other teams in the SEC East not named Georgia. I'm looking at Kentucky's wide receiving core. I think a lot of people are sleeping on it. I think that the stigma about Kentucky football is that they're a physical team that likes to run the football. They can't do much throwing the football, and I think that's going to change this year. And this defense is going to be really good. Mark Stoops feels really confident about how good his front 7 is going to play this year. As a matter of fact, they feel that this is the most talented and the deepest that Kentucky has been on the defensive line in a very long time. And it's not about how many SEC defenses that Devin Leary has faced. There has been plenty of quarterbacks that have transferred to the SEC and had success. How many SEC defenses did Jaden Daniels face when he was playing for Arizona State? None. And he was snapping for LSU. So it's not about what conference you come from. If you're a great quarterback in one conference, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be that same quarterback unless you just forget how to play football. Joe Milton wasn't good for Michigan, and he was snapping for Tennessee. And he didn't face any SEC defenses when he was playing for Michigan. And I'm taking that Mr. Jones in the comment section happens to be a Tennessee fan, and he's strongly disagreeing with this, and I understand that. This is a really bold take, but I think that Kentucky, with them having a better defense this year, gives them the edge over Tennessee. And Tennessee's offensive playing style kind of hinders how good their defense can be, because anytime you have an offense that's as fast as Tennessee, you're going to put your defense on the field for a lot of plays. Tennessee's defense is probably on the field for 12 to 15 more plays, more as opposed to a team that runs a less faster offense or a slower paced offense. And that's going to be a huge disadvantage when you're playing against a team like Kentucky that's able to run the football and tire your defense out faster. In South Carolina, I'm not sleeping on the Beamer boys. I love the Beamer boys. I got them winning 8 games, but I don't think their offensive line is going to be as good as what Kentucky's is going to be, and their defense has some question marks also. So I think that Kentucky is a better overall team than what South Carolina is. South Carolina got their team depleted from the transfer portal. The offensive line is still a concern. They got a talent at receiver, but we don't know how consistent Spencer Rattler is going to be. And I'm not doubting Spencer Rattler. I'm just saying that he was inconsistent last year. He had a good 3-4 game stretch to end the season. Devin Leary is just a better proven, more consistent QB. Same thing with Joe Milton. I love Joe Milton, but even though I think Joe Milton is going to be a very great quarterback, I think he's going to be a Heisman finalist. Right now, I got to put my bias aside, and I have to give the advantage to Devin Leary. I think Kentucky is a better overall team than what Tennessee and South Carolina is, and that's why I think they're going to end up being the second best team in the East behind Georgia. You look at their schedule, I think they can be able to win 10 games. They probably won't be able to beat Alabama. Alabama probably will win that game, but I think outside of that game, everybody else that Kentucky plays is pretty beatable. Even Georgia. You look at the teams that have given Georgia some of their toughest games over the last couple of years in the East, it's been Kentucky. Even though Kentucky isn't a team that is normally great offensively, their defense is really good, and this is one of those teams that they're very physical. And I think this year they could give Georgia a little bit of a challenge this year now that they have a better quarterback, and if their offensive line improves, I think that Kentucky-Georgia game could be interesting, and Kentucky has the possibility of going into that game against Georgia possibly undefeated and maybe being a top 10, top 15 team heading in. So I think that a lot of people are overlooking Kentucky. They're going to have a great defense. They already have a really good defensive line with a lot of talent, a lot of depth, guys who are good against the run, guys who are good against the pass, and plenty of those guys on that defensive line are like 5 4-star guys. Their offense has a really good group of wide receivers. Dane Key and Barry Brown probably are going to be the best wide receiving duo in the conference by the end of this year. That's a bold prediction, and I'm willing to bet money on it. And you know that Kentucky normally gets pretty good production out of the running back position. The thing that has held back Kentucky has been quarterback play. Will Levis wasn't bad, but I don't think he was great. And that's why he got drafted in the second round as opposed to being a top 10 pick like many people projected him to be. I was never a big fan of Will Levis. He doesn't take care of the football, especially in big moments. I still remember that loss against Ole Miss like it was nothing. I remember when Will Levis had the ball with an opportunity to win that game, and I was just telling my roommate who I was watching the game with, I was like, watch him fold, watch him sell this game, and a couple of plays later, he ends up fumbling the football, Ole Miss recovers, and they win the game eventually. I think Devin Leary is the best quarterback that Kentucky has had in a very long time. I don't remember the last great Kentucky quarterback, but I think Devin Leary may be the best that this program has had in well over a decade. The last time Kentucky won 10 games, or they had a lot of success when they had Benny Snell, they had Terry Wilson as their starting quarterback, I believe. And he wasn't really all that great. So when you got Devin Leary, probably the best passer at the quarterback position that Kentucky has had, with what they have at wide receiver, this is a very dangerous team. I'm telling you, like, the Kentucky team that you have known for over the last couple of years under Mark Stoops is not going to be the same Kentucky team that you see this year. This is going to be probably his best passing offense that he's ever had, and probably his most explosive offense ever. And this defense is going to be really good, and the offensive line should improve. I think Kentucky is probably going to be the second best team in the SEC East this year, man. Tennessee runs the ball more than they throw it. Mr. Jones in the comment section says, in the last 30 plus years, Kentucky has only beaten Tennessee twice. And I think that this year could probably be the third time in the last 30 plus years that Kentucky has beaten Tennessee. Tennessee has a really good team, but I think that a lot of people are really overlooking Kentucky this year, man. And I'm going to continue to push the narrative about Kentucky being one of the most underrated teams in college football this year. Mark Stoops is a really underrated head coach. They may not recruit at a really high level, but they do a really good job at player development and utilizing the transfer portal. So I think that Kentucky is most likely going to be the second best team in the SEC East this year, behind Georgia.